Hello ladies and gentlemen.
My bees do be eating icing though. Look at that bee's moves. Sheesh.
What is happening with my skin? Do you see this? This is supposed to be a sort of a book. This is a cool skin, I guess. Another broken day in CS. Very nice. So it's been over 1 month since we last talked to Bendy. I'm so sorry man, but it's fine. We're here now. Don't worry. You're in good hands. But in this video, we're gonna do a lot more math than the last one. So I'm sorry Bendy. And he also told me that the popcorn I made wasn't healthy because it had a lot of sugar. I don't think either one of us is the ambassador of health, but yeah, okay, I can do you a better one. So what I want you to do in this video is stand up, go get a tall glass of cold water, throw a few ice cubes in there if you're feeling absolutely cheeky. Get yourself an apple and chop it up. Yes, I cut my apples. I got braces. I don't want to go back to the old primitive fat cake that could eat an apple through a tennis racket. And then finally, because there's so much math in this video and you have to concentrate a lot, go get yourself some allergics or any substance that helps you with allergies, because if you're allergic to maths, you'll be in a terrible state. So with that out of the way, let's get into the video. But first, as you can see, my skin is fixed now. Weird, but yeah. If you like this type of videos, please like and subscribe. And this is a follow-up to my last video with Bendy in like a month ago. Card up in the right hand corner if you want to see that first. But if you're already familiar with skins, you don't need to watch that. So let's get into it. First of all, what is a trade up? Well, I'll break it down to you very easily. You use any 10 skins from the same rarity, so that is blue, purple, pink, and then light blue and grey and stuff like that, to trade up to one tier higher. So you'll use 10 purples to trade up to a pink. For those that want the correct terminology for like restricted and covert and everything like that, I'm not going to use that. I'm just going to use colors because everyone can see colors, but not everyone knows the exact words for every class or tier, if you will. So you have to use 10 skins to trade up to one highest tier, and they have to be in the same state. What I mean by that is they either have to be non-stat track or they have to be stat track. You can't put 5 and 5, that doesn't work. You have to be the same one. Another thing I want to mention is you can't use 10 coverts to trade up to a gold. That would be so cool, but you cannot do it. You cannot trade up souvenir items, so you can't trade up to like a souvenir dragon law. You can only unbox that. So yeah, that's basically the technical side of things. You just use 10 skins to get a better skin of a higher grade. So with that out of the way, let's get into some maths. I'm going to start off with the odds and how you work out the odds yourself. There is a lot of websites that show you the odds that you can just plug your skins into, but I want to show you why certain trade ups have certain odds, so you understand it, that it isn't just numbers on a screen that you don't get. Okay, so this is the one site. I'm just going to use this one, but there's another one, Trade Up Spy, if you want to use that. I'll leave links to these sites in my description if you want to go to them. So when you're on csgofloat.com, you just go into tools and you go into trade up calculator. So this is where you can just do your own trade ups. Okay. So I'm going to use the revolution case for a lot of this video and chain collection and the stuff I like and that I've already done on my channel, because it's a sense of familiarity, if that makes sense. So let's say we're going to do my Timukau series, or we're going to do any covert trade up in the revolution case. Let's say we use, I don't know, 10 wild childs. This is just vanilla wild childs. So with 10 of them and there being 2 outcomes, it's a 50-50. So when it comes to trade ups, you really care about the outcome. Okay, so I'm just going to record all of this again. I showed a lot of graphs and talked about maths, and honestly it even confused me. So yeah, I'm not even going to do that to you. I'm going to bring it down to the basics of the basic, or in a way that people can understand it quite easily. So the outcomes are the most important thing. The more outcomes there are, the less chance you have for one singular item. I'll show you some examples now. If there's a lot of items, your chances of getting one certain item is a lot less, and if there's less outcomes, your chances become more. Let's quickly use the Gungnir, my favorite skin. So we just chuck in, let's say, a Mjolnir, why not? Let's just use one. And then we use the Justice. Now if you don't know, this number here is the amount of outcomes there are. So in the Mjolnir it is only one, the Gungnir. In the Justice there's two of them, the Bullet Queen and the Player 2. So your chances are 5%. It should be 10% because you used one of them and 9 of these. So it should be 10% and 90%. But that's not how it works. Because there's 3 outcomes, your chances of one singular outcome is a lot less. And the outcomes also matter when it comes to how efficient the inputs are or how much more bang you get for your buck. So let's go back to the Mjolnir. There is one outcome and that's the Gungnir. Now let's use something else that has also one outcome, Sparkle's favorite skin. So we use 5 Mjolnirs and we use 5 Cold-Bloodeds. That means 50% for the Gungnir, 50% for the Blood in the Water. There's 2 outcomes, so the odds are split. Pretty simple. And if we do, let's say, let's take out more of the Mjolnirs. Let's say we do 2 Mjolnirs and 8 Cold-Bloodeds, you get a 20-80. So you actually get 10% per input that you get. So you get 10% value, if that makes sense. Now let's use a skin that I recommended in my last investment series, or my last investment video, if you will. I recommended the Acid Fade. And this is the reason why. You see there's only one outcome and that's the Nitro. So let's say we use 9 of these, right? And only leave one spot open. Then we chuck in Emerald Quartz. Now this is from the Norse collection, so this is for the Desert Eagle, the Org, stuff like that. So there's 3 of them. It's for the Desert Eagle, Emerald Jormungandr, Org Flame Jormungandr and the P90 Astral Jormungandr. So there's 4 outcomes, as you can see. It's 1 is the Nitro and then 3 is the Norse collection. So your odds of getting the Norse collection is 25% for only using 1 input, which is crazy. You get 25% value for 1 input used. So the amount of outcomes depend on your odds for 1 singular item. Let me put it this way. Let's say the Nitro is the same, right? The Acid Fade is one, it has only 1. Let's say the Acid Fade only has 1 outcome, the Nitro. But instead of the Emerald Quartz having 3 items, it only had the Emerald Jormungandr, right? So there's 2 outcomes gonna be. Let's ignore these 2. You only wanted the Emerald Jormungandr. When you used 1 of these and 9 of these, it would be 90% for the Nitro and 10% for the Emerald Jormungandr, because there's only 2 outcomes. Okay, so it's going to be the same like this. Just imagine this is now restricted with only 1 outcome, the Emerald Jormungandr, and this is that Acid Fade that I just showed you. So it would be the exact same thing. It would be a 10% for the Deagle and it would be a 90% for the Nitro. So the amount of outcomes depends on what your chances will be. So your chances would be more for the Deagle, but it would be overall less for the collection, if that makes sense. But that also means your effectiveness per 1 item that you use from the Norse collection becomes less the more you use. Let me put it this way. Let's say we use 1, we get a 25%, right? Now what will happen if we use 9? So let's say we use 9 of these and only 1 Acid Fade. Our odds will only be 96%, right? So if we use 9 of these, our odds would be 96.43%. Now divide that by 9, because we used 9 of these. Each item only gives us a 10.7% effectiveness. Thus we're losing 15%, almost 15% from the original 1 item only. Okay, so this again, 1 Mjolnir, 9 Justice. We said it was 5.26% and about 94.7%, if we will. What if we use 9 of those? So our odds become 81.82 for using 9 of these. So our first one gave us 5.26%, but let's divide 81.82 by 9 and we get 9% per item. So thus it went from 5% all the way up to 9%. So we're getting more efficiency the less outcomes there are. Like this, we use 9 Cold-Bloodeds and we use 1 Mjolnir. We have 2 outcomes, so we get 10% per item we use. That doesn't matter how many we use. We can use 9 of these and we can only use 1 Cold-Blooded. It will only be a 90% and a 10%, as you can see. So for 1 item of these we get 10% because there's only 2 outcomes. Okay, so that is the outcomes. let's talk a bit about the float and how to calculate that. For this one, you're definitely gonna need your thinking cap. If there isn't smoke coming out of your ears after this, you're doing it wrong. So in my last videos explaining skins, we talked about floats. Just a quick recap. A skin has a float between 0 and 1. So let's talk about it in hundreds. So you start out at 0.0 and go all the way up to 1. So the float is between 100, if that makes sense. Starts at 0, goes to 1. That is quite important because that's how I'm going to try and explain this. And something I forgot to mention is the floats do not get any worse the more you use a skin. So if you get a factory new skin, it will stay factory new forever unless you use it in a trade up. Okay, so let's start off. Let's say we're going to divide it into points. So the factory new is 7 points, right? Because 0.0 to 0.07, which means 7 out of the 100 points is factory new. The headshot has no restrictions, meaning that 7 points of it is also factory new, and the Temukal. So thus the minimum float needs to be below 0.07. Let me quickly show you. So it must be below 0.07. So if you just put 0.07, it's going to be minimal wear. But if you just chuck in a cheeky 0.69, it will be factory new. So those are skins with not a lot of restrictions. Let's talk about skins with more restrictions. Okay, so this is the USB whiteout. Its minimum float that you can get it in is 0.06. So it's barely factory new. Now when we're talking about points, there's 1 point in the factory new possible, and its max float is 0.8. Meaning if we're talking points, there's only 74 points available in the USB whiteout, because you're gonna get the first 6 and you cannot get the last 20. So to get this in a factory new is very difficult, but that also makes it quite easy to calculate what your float needs to be. As we have discussed, only 1 point is factory new. So that means 1 point out of the 74 this skin has will be factory new. So let's go to percentage wise. 1 out of 74 is 1.35%, meaning 1.35% of the skin is factory new, the overall skin. So what float do you think we need to get it in factory new? You guessed it, 0.135 float. The average needs to be 0.135. There you go, it's barely factory new. Let's say we just change it to this one to 0.14. Boom. It's in minimal wear. So 1.35% of this skin isn't factory new, as you can see. So the average float needs to be 1.35. That's actually an easy way to explain it. I hope that helped a bit. Now let's talk about the Glock Emerald, right? I love the Glock Emerald. What is its max float? So this is the Glock, right? Its max float is 0.5, meaning that 50%, right? So it has 50 points. 7 out of the 50 is in the factory new range. So 7 out of 50 is 14%. What do you think we need to get it in factory new? Boom. All of these are 14, so it's going to be 0.07, but we need it below 14. So we'll make, let's say, 2 of them 0.139. And it will be factory new. So that's quite an easy way to work out how difficult it will be to get a certain skin in a certain float. Let's go to the Fire Serpent and why that is such a legendary skin in CSGO and why factory new ones are so expensive. Okay, so this is one of the ugliest skins in CSGO in my opinion. I do not like the Fire Serpent, but that's not the point. So we see its max float is 0.76 battle scarred and its minimum float is 0.06. So how many points is there available in the Fire Serpent? That's correct. You take the 76, which is its max float, minus the 0.06. So there's 70 points total in the skin, or 70 possible float points, if that makes sense. One of them, 1 out of the 70, isn't factory new. Just that smudge of green, right? That 1 point out of the 70 is factory new. So 1 out of 70 is 1.428%. What does the average float need to be? 0.1428. Now let's make all 10 of those 0.1428 and you get a factory new Fire Serpent. So all of your floats need to be 0.01428 to get a factory new fire serpent because of the float caps. Now I could go on and on about float caps and how it works and stuff like that. For example, this graphite is very easy to get in factory new because 7 out of the possible 12. You see, its maximum float is 0.12. So it's minimal wear. 7 out of 12 is 58.33%, meaning that 58% of the skin's float is in the factory new range, which means it's more likely to get this skin in factory new than it is to get in minimal wear. And this one, only 1.428% of the skin is in the factory new range, meaning only 1.428% of the skin is factory new, or it gets dropped in the factory new state. That's why they are so rare. So I hope this point and percentage system helped you a bit. If it's a bit confusing, I'm sorry. You could just ask me questions in the comments and I will respond to all of them. So thank you all for the continuous support. By you just watching the video and liking, maybe even subscribing, it helps my channel quite a lot. I hope this was useful. I'm not the best teacher. I just wanted to put this video out there for my Glock. I wanted to do this before my first Glock video, but I got impatient. But it's fine, because now we can do even more Glock trade ups. I have about 64 attempts at it, so there will be at least 6 or 7 videos of it. So I hope you are excited about that one, and thank you so much for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.